how did you go from saying, okay, we don't have health insurance, to being like, I'm going to build an entire community of people who think like I do, who are going to be like collaborating in this method? Because now that you've got it running and it's working and it's beautiful, it's like great. But like, imagine, that's a daunting idea to come up with from scratch and then actually build out to the point where it's working beautifully. I'm really curious about how you went from ideation and like what formulated that idea. Like, were you always enamored with community? Did you read it in a book? Did you like stumble upon an idea from the sky? Or like, how did that actually manifest in your life?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and I wish I would have like taken better notes 3 or 4 years ago when I started the company to figure it out. I mean, it's one of those things where I just feel like I've got an entrepreneurial spirit, and if I see a problem, I'm going to figure out how to solve it. And so let's get creative in the way that we can solve it. And oftentimes within healthcare, as you said, starting the show, it's like so daunting that people are like, I don't even know where to start, like on this. I was fortunate enough to have a little bit of healthcare experience. And so I understood the industry, better than probably your normal, person walking along the street. And so I had a little bit of background. I was like, I think I can do this. The other benefit I have that, I had that others don't is I didn't need a salary. My first company went great. And so I didn't really need to do this. This is one of those things where it was more of a passion project. And so if it is a passion project, if it's missional, then, it is much easier to just trudge through it and get something done as opposed to doing it just to make money. And I always say, like, when I hire people, I hire missionaries. I don't hire mercenaries, meaning like I want people who are on mission to say like, this healthcare system sucks. We've got to fix it. We have 200,000 people every year, 200,000 families every year that go bankrupt because they have a big health event, even though they have health insurance. Like, let's do it for those 200,000 people. Let's do it for all these people who are paying, $10,000 or $20,000 a year for their healthcare and not using it at all, right? Like a lot of your listeners, I know your podcast are probably sitting there being like, man, I'm healthy. I take care of myself. I work out 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week. I eat right. And I have to pay $10,000 or $20,000, whatever it is, for healthcare. Like, that seems absolutely ridiculous to me. Right. Yeah. And so I was like, I want to help those people who are doing the right things, taking care of themselves, aren't going to be the ones with chronic conditions when they're 70s and 80s and not be a suck on society. Like, I want to help those people get really great healthcare, but not have to pay, a ridiculous amount of money for it. Like, that's what we're missionally about. And so, our average customer is 34. The BMI, we just looked at it the other day, is like 5 points lower than the national average. These are a lot of people who, take kind of self-sovereignty, personal responsibility as a very high priority in their lives. And so we've got a good group of people who, act right and do what they need to do. And not everybody, but most. And so you're in a community of those types of people who are like, man, I want to help people in the community like that, right? Like, that's going to lower cost, overall. I mean, one cool, quick story, and sorry for rambling, but like, we had a guy who we limit your weight to 240. We make exceptions for people who have, significantly high muscle mass, but like 240 is a limit. We had a guy who was like 260, and he's like, I really want to be a member of Crowd Health. And I was like, all right, dude, like, lose 20 pounds, like, and here's 3 or 4 different ways to do it. And the guy lost, I think he's down to like 195 now. He's a member of Crowd Health. And he reached out on Twitter and he's like, dude, you wouldn't believe this. I just came in 3rd in a triathlon because I've been working so hard. And I'm like, our system should be set up to incentivize people to get their act together and do the things that they need to do with their bodies, right? So that we don't have 70% of our, population being overweight and 40% being obese and things like that. And so that's what gets us fired up. You can't tell, I got a lot of energy around this. Like, that's what gets us fired up is like, man, I want to incentivize people to take care of themselves so they can run around the backyard with their grandkids when they're 80 years old. Like, that's beauty. Like, it's not just about money. It's like, how do we live better lives?